let me out? Andy? Andy?
I have no idea to this day what those two Italian ladies were singing about. Truth is, I don't want to know. Some things are best left unsaid. I like to think they were singing about something so beautiful it can't be expressed in words, and makes your heart ache because of it. I tell you, those voices soared, higher and farther than anybody in a great place dares to dream. It was like some beautiful bird flapped into our drab little cage and made those walls dissolve away. And for the briefest of moments, every last man at Shawshank felt free.
Open the door. Open it up! Dufresne, open this door! Turn that off! I am warning you, Dufresne, turn that off! Dufresne!
You're mine now.
Andy got 2 weeks in the hole for that little stunt.
On your feet.
What's it?
Maestro.
Hey. You couldn't play something good, huh? Hank Williams or something?
They broke the door down before I could take requests.
Was it worth it? 2 weeks in the hall?
I remember this time I ever did. It's hard to keep me company.
So they let you tote that record player down there, huh?
It's in here. In here. That's the beauty of music. They can't get that from you.
He says it's in here. And when it's in here, that nobody can touch it. This morning, we have a tremendous opportunity, a gift that I got to share in last week that changed my life, that I just adored and loved, is that I had the opportunity to sit and to talk with Smitty Harris, his story, but also for almost 8 years, how it was that they could not touch what was in here and what was in here, despite the bars that were around you. So let's welcome Smitty. Smitty, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Reagan.
So much. Why don't you give us an idea? Talk about you were flying, and tell us about that day on how you got captured.
Okay. I was a fighter pilot in the Air Force, a rather senior fighter pilot for those days. I was 36 years old, and but I always had the ability to convince people I was about 10 years younger than my actual age. That really helped in captivity, because I could always say, you know, the colonels and the generals, they know that stuff. A young fighter pilot wouldn't. But at any rate, I was flying an F-105 fighter bomber, capable of Mach 2 speeds. But on this day, I was carrying 8 750-pound bombs, and my target was a large bridge in North Vietnam. I had taken off from Thailand. The bridge was very important. It carried both rail and vehicular traffic. It was massive, massive, and I happened to be the first airplane to roll in on the bridge that day. There were about 20-some or nearly 30 of my buddies waiting to see the impact of my bombs, because the bridge was in a pretty wide, deep gorge, and the winds could not be predicted accurately, and they wanted to see where my bombs might strike and then make adjustments as they came down. Well, the anti-aircraft fire was almost unbelievable. There were puffs that I knew had very dense interiors all around my airplane and below. But you're so busy setting up the right dive angle, all the switches properly set, the target where it should be in the sight, the right altitude, and doing the things that would put my bombs on target. It just, that was so intense a job that I was unable to even worry about what was outside the airplane. Unfortunately, though, after I dropped my bombs and I was going at a very steep angle, I started pulling out a lot of G-forces. The plane was going, at that time, probably around 600 miles an hour. And my plane received a direct hit in the engine area with an exploding anti-aircraft round. I knew the plane was crippled. There was smoke in the cockpit. I also knew that my huge amount of fuel on board was on fire. I must have looked like a Cape Canaveral going up, only I was in horizontal mode. I had trouble controlling the airplane and knew quickly that I must eject. Now, when you eject from a plane going that fast, there's no way you could crawl over the side, but it's fixed so the seat you're sitting in has an explosive or rocket device attached to it, so when you reach and pull a trigger, it blows the canopy off and it blows you in the seat to a pretty high height. And then even if you were unconscious, it would separate, the seat would separate from you and your parachute would open. I was conscious during that time, but it all happened so fast and automatically that I suddenly found myself looking up at a perfectly good chute. I had ejected from the airplane at such a high speed, though, that I think my arm flailed in the slipstream as I went out. And I knew my shoulder was badly damaged. It didn't at that time hurt. It did later. But I had broken my shoulder and my arm was just numb. I was able to slip the chute using my good hand and land just outside a village and was captured immediately. There were a lot of things that went on. I was mistreated. I was paraded. I was spit at. I was hit at. But finally, I ended up, after being shown to the Vietnamese people, I ended up in a vehicle and ended up in a prison in Hanoi. We call the Hanoi Hilton. There was immediate efforts. There were many interrogations trying to get me to give them useful military information, the capability of our aircraft, our tactics, our targets, and so on. And I refused to give those. I could not. It made them very angry. I was beat up quite severely and threatened. Even a mock trial was, or they said they were going to try me as a criminal. And if I ever said the word POW, prisoner of war, it was an immediate knocked off the stool backwards, criminal of war. They would not recognize our status. I was put in solitary confinement, and when things were getting pretty rough, it brought back to me a realization of why am I here? What are the really important values? And it suddenly, it just came over me that I've been raised a Christian as a child. I thought I was a good Christian, but it suddenly came over me that my training and my flying and my hobbies, my wife, my children, all the things around me were taking up so much of my time that I really didn't know what my true faith was about because I didn't think about it very much. But when times were really hard and I was not sure that I would even survive their treatment, sometimes after a week or so of gross mistreatment, torture, I would be to the end of my mental and physical, emotional capability. I was not sure whether I would survive or not. I was in such great pain that I really couldn't think straight. But boy, did that ever give me a chance to focus in on what was important and to ignore all of my other interests when I was not there. I knew that I was insignificant. I had a life that was so precious, but I didn't order things done. I didn't create the universe. Some power did. Some power created our life and gave us a soul. And I just focused on that. I was so insignificant, but there was some huge power that ordered the universe in our lives and gave us all the gifts. And I prayed. I knew that God would answer my prayer. He did. The chains didn't fall off. I didn't get an immediate miracle. But what I got, what I received, was a sure knowledge that someone greater than I was directing and helping whatever might happen to me. And if my life was worth saving, that it would be saved. In other words, it took the burden off of me to fight, to try to live. And I put the burden somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And I had such a peace of mind then, mm-hmm. knowing that it was not me to do something, it was me to pray and ask for help. I think that's the greatest gift I ever had.
You shared about how when you were in captivity, every Sunday y'all worshiped. Even if you were in solitary confinement, you'd hear a knock on the wall. And what did